Welcome to my newest video. This is Fantasy Lore, and today we are going to go over the recently published synopsis regarding the Lord of the Rings TV show, currently being produced by Amazon. Now, this synopsis was released by theonering.net a few days ago, and although it does not give us an extraordinary new amount of information, it does raise some questions, so let's get started. Amazon Studios' forthcoming series brings to screens for the very first time the heroic legends of the fabled Second Age of Middle-earth's history. This epic drama is set thousands of years before the events of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and will take viewers back to an era in which great powers were forged, kingdoms rose to glory and fell to ruin, unlikely heroes were tested, hope hung by the finest of threads, and the greatest villain that ever flowed from Tolkien's pen threatened to cover all the world in darkness. Beginning in a time of relative peace, the series follows an ensemble cast of characters, both familiar and new, as they confront the long-feared re-emergence of evil to Middle-earth, from the darkest depths of the Misty Mountains, to the majestic forests of the elf capital of Lindon, to the breathtaking island kingdom of Númenor. To the furthest reaches of the map, these kingdoms and characters will carve out legacies that live on long after they are gone. Well, the first part isn't anything new. The information that the series would focus on the Second Age had already been officially released by Amazon itself. But the second part is perhaps the greatest revelation in the whole synopsis. We knew that as the series is set in the Second Age, it would probably focus on the forging of the Great Rings and Númenor, but the mention of the greatest villain that ever flowed up from Tolkien's pen is a clear reference to Morgoth, the chief villain of the Silmarillion, of which Sauron was only a lieutenant. Now, the problem here is that Morgoth is not even in Middle-earth in the Second Age. As a matter of fact, the Second Age begins precisely with Morgoth's imprisonment, so I'm not sure how they could include his presence. And that isn't the only thing that does not make much sense in this synopsis regarding the timeline of the series. Let's look at the timeline of the Second Age in order to try to understand this. Now, both Lindon and Númenor are mentioned, which makes sense since their founding occurs in the very beginning of the Second Age. And they also mention the darkest depths of the Misty Mountains, which could be a reference to Moria, although we do not know for certain. They also tell us that the series will begin in a time of relative peace. So let's take a look at this. It is safe to assume that the series will take place during the return of Sauron. The problem is, Sauron took rather a long time to become active. Even though he returned in the year 500 of the Second Age to Middle-earth, he only started the construction of Barad Dur and Mordor in around the year 1000 of the Second Age. Then, in the year 1200, he goes to Eregion and starts his work on deceiving the elves, and the start of the forging of the Great Rings begins 300 years later, and finally, the One Ring is forged 100 years later in 1600 of the Second Age. So if the series is indeed starting in a period of peace and sees the return of Sauron, we are talking of a span of 1100 years just between his return and the forging of the One Ring. And the thing is, it is only after the forging of the One Ring that the wars actually begin, and they last around the year 3441 of the Second Age. So, is the series going to start during the forging of the One Ring? In that case, are we going to miss the forging of the Great Rings of Power in the series? Well, probably not. It is one of the biggest events on the whole Second Age, but then how are they going to show us 3,400 years worth of history? Are they going to have to break the canon in order to make all the timelines fit in the time span of the series? Are they perhaps going to make a season for each major event? Comment below on what you think the series will be like. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Farewell.